Speaking of neocons, Dan Crenshaw with some very interesting new comments. So before we play you exactly what he said, you will recall that Unusual Whales has put out that report of trades by members of Congress, which show that Representative Dan Crenshaw has got the 5th largest return in all of Congress. Now, Crenshaw had not yet been pressed on this report up until recently, where he actually appeared on a podcast. And I want to give a special shout out actually to this interviewer because he did not let it go. He pressed him over and over again. This is from the All American Savage show. And when Crenshaw appeared, the interviewer not only presses him on why you would have to know why it looks bad, he actually gets Crenshaw to disclose some of the details on that trades and all but admit that, yeah, you know, I understand why people make it looks bad, but the reason why it should be allowed is because us as members of Congress, we don't get paid enough. You see, we're living a very poor life, a very paltry lifestyle. I'm not exaggerating. That's literally what he says. Let's take a listen.
There is one topic that I definitely want to get straight from the horse's mouth on this one. It wasn't very long ago that Nancy Pelosi was asked a question in regards to can sitting members of Congress, or should they be allowed to have direct involvement in the trading in the stock market and things such as that? And she said, yes, it's a capitalist society. She supports that. And there was an article that was just published about yourself. I'm pretty sure you're probably aware of this. It basically talked about, I'd seen some Turning Point people posting about this and said, this is coming from Texas Signal saying Dan Crenshaw's stock trading yielded the 5th highest return in Congress. Basically pointing out that your campaign had received a donation from Boeing, they had lobbied, things such as that. Where do you stand on the twofold question? Do you believe that sitting members of Congress should be allowed to trade in the stock market, even though you kind of have direct insight and somewhat control over how that flow goes and which government-favored corporations? You get where I'm going. Let's start with that one first. Where do you stand on that?
I mean, I think it'd be fine if you wanted to ban individual stock trading. Notice I said individual stocks.
Right.
What of course,
as opposed to what?
As opposed to ETFs, indexes. You know, I'm kind of neutral on it. Like, if you want only millionaires and billionaires to run for Congress, then keep making sure that we can't raise our pay, that we can't get a housing stipend, that we have to just spend or pay rent in 2 different places. That's fine. If you want to, if that's what you want to support, but just keep in mind that no one will run for Congress. Because you have no way to better yourself.
You have no way to better yourself. Last time I checked, these guys' job was not to better themselves, it was to better the lives of the people that they represent.
How about that?
And just to give you an idea, these people make $174,000 per year. Whenever Crenshaw and these people complain about this, what they really mean is, I cannot afford the lifestyle of all of the rich people of whom I comport myself with as a member of Congress. You can pay just fine, by the way, on $174,000 per year if you live in a modest house of your district, and if you were to rent like a cheap hotel or whatever here in Washington. I have friends who were staffers on Capitol Hill who were really pissed off by that because they contacted me and said, you know, the congressmen and all people who work on Capitol Hill make many multiples less of this and are expected to live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
and they made it just completely fine.
So little.
They make like, and this is not a joke, guys, like $28,000 starting salary
which is
on
really,
Capitol Hill.
Which is a real problem because then, basically the only people who can afford to do it are people who live
Rich
in
kids.
Washington, are people whose parents can help finance them here. And so it does create this pipeline of just basically affluent staffers, and it's very hard for working class people to make it ultimately in that world. It's absurd and it's disgusting and it's so revealing.
Yes.
They don't see themselves as public servants. They're here to enrich themselves. They're here to fatten their employment prospects. I mean, that's what they're all angling for. Like, if you want to understand what Kyrsten Sinema's doing, for example, she doesn't care about, like, winning the next Senate seat. She cares about how much she's going to cash in when she gets out of here. And that is not in any way unique. And you see them using whatever they can while they're in office to cash in while they are still in office, as Dan Crenshaw has done extraordinarily effectively. 5th best, apparently, among him and all of his colleagues. So yeah, it tells you so much about the mindset. And here's another thing, because, you know, a particular interest of mine has been getting more working class people into Congress, because look, it doesn't solve everything, but having more people who live and know normal Americans would definitely benefit us in terms of the types of policies that they would ultimately pursue, rather than seeing themselves in this elite social set, that they actually are in touch with the real lives and real concerns of ordinary Americans would be a wonderful thing. There has been zero improvement in terms of what class people are coming from when they represent us in Congress and state houses around the country, even as gender and racial diversity has improved. And it has nothing to do with the salary not being enough. You take an ordinary working class person and say, hey, you get to Congress, you're going to make $170K. They'd think that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
The problem comes from the fact that you have, before you can even walk in, you know, get through the gates of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, they want to see that you either are personally rich or that your social circle is personally rich. Then, if you can somehow manage to raise through grassroots support enough money for the parties to take you seriously, then you face overwhelming contempt from the elites in the party and the donor class, who think that if you're not, you know, an Ivy League educated whatever, then you can't possibly understand the problems of the nation to be able to effectively run and serve in office. That's why you end up with so little class diversity. There's all these gatekeeping mechanisms to keep working class people from running successfully for Congress. It has nothing to do with making $170K once you get there. So extraordinarily revealing comments about what these people actually think they're doing here in Washington.
Another thing I want to point out is that when they say you have no way to better yourself, you could better yourself by doing what the rest of us working stiffs do, or Krystal and I did. You can start your own company. You can leave Congress tomorrow. You can go and work for somebody if you really have the skills. Here's the truth. Most of them have no actual skills. They have no ability to make any real money out in the private sector. Their only value add is here in DC. Trying to rig the systems of power, working on behalf of the powerful. Here's the other thing I love. During that interview, this Ranger, All-American
Savage, I think.
All-American Savage. Again, I give a lot of credit to this guy, because he was like, well, okay, how much did you make? And Crenshaw goes, look, it was only $20,000. Only $20,000? Okay, I just looked it up. He makes $174,000 a year. That is 11% of his total take of the year 2020. That's actually a lot of money. Then he presses him and goes, did you buy individual stocks? You bought Boeing, right? And Crenshaw was like, yeah, you know, like $2,000. And so All-American Savage goes again. He goes, well, have you ever met with any Boeing lobbyists before? And he's like, look, I'm sure they've been present at my events. And he goes, can you understand then and see why people would be suspicious? And Crenshaw goes, look, they don't tell us anything. He's like, he goes, I think you guys dramatically overestimate how, you know, the amount of insider knowledge and all this. I'm serious. It's too long to play it all. I really want everybody to go and listen to this full interview, because Crenshaw is so full of it. Some sob story about he's too poor to afford living in two places. No. You can afford it just fine, just not the way that you want to live large. And you don't have enough skills to actually do anything in the private sector. That's the reason why they want to get paid more. And then B, just writing it off as if it's some public conspiracy theory to think that these people who lie for a living would not lie to us and ask them to, they want us to trust them and their intentions. Hell no, Congressman. No. Remove all the barriers. And to your point, this is so dramatically popular that even Nancy Pelosi, the queen of trading herself, has now had to fold and say, look, if the members of Congress want to do it, then I support it. Let's take a listen.
So when people talk about, well, somebody might do this and somebody, I think I trust our members. If, in fact, we should have severe penalties for delay in reporting on Stock Act, then do that. I've said to the House Administration Committee, review all the bills that are coming in and see which ones, where the support is in our caucus. I think there are 2 letters, each has like 14 members signing it so far, maybe more will come, but that's what we have seen. But I do come down always in favor of trusting our members. Now, if impression that is given by some that somebody's doing insider trading, that's a Justice Department issue. That's a Justice Department issue, and that has no place in any of this. But to give a blanket attitude of we can't do this and we can't do that because we can't be trusted, I just don't buy into that. But if members want to do that, I'm okay with that.
Oh, yeah, I still don't support it. But if they want to do it, I'm okay
Maybe
with
I'm
it.
okay
yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
because you're retiring. That's why you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is like this shouldn't count for progress, but it does.
No, it is.
Her
You have to
previous
force their
comments,
hands. Yeah.
her previous comments were like, no, it's the free market and people should be able to engage in that. I love her framing, though, of like, I trust the members of Congress. We don't trust the members of Congress. It's not really about whether you trust them. It's about whether we trust them.
Yes.
And the bottom line is, the numbers don't lie. And this is why Unusual Whales has been so important, because by doing the work of crunching the numbers, you can see, oh, turns out you guys outperform the market. Oh, turns out you outperform some of the, like, you know, most highly, like, the people who are supposed to be experts at this.
Yeah.
Turns out you all somehow are better at it. Interesting. We got to see how, you're on a significant defense committee and then you're buying stock in Boeing and Raytheon and these other things. Or, you claim publicly to be some big tech critic. Meanwhile, you're making money off of when the tech stocks go up. Or, hey, you had a bunch of, like, an insider briefing on the pandemic and what was coming, and then you dumped a bunch of stocks. That's kind of weird. Why'd you do that? We have just been able to see through the transparency and through the analytical data crunching of people like Unusual Whales exactly what's going on. And so listen, if you're not insider trading, if this is all on the up and up, then you shouldn't be concerned about this.
Listen,
you know?
if we could ban trading and get somebody like Crenshaw to retire, that's a public service, in my opinion.
Well,
so,
that's the other thing.
Go
it's
ahead,
like,
go better yourself.
How
Be happy to.
How much would we see of how many people would retire once they were no longer able to better themselves through using insider knowledge to play the stock market? It would at least root out a few pretenders who are not public servants at all, who are just there ultimately to cash in, and they can leave their office and go cash in as lobbyists even quicker, which is a whole other problem that we also need to deal with.
That's right.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.